Hey guys, good morning. Today I wanted to do a quick book review of some of my books that I have about Salem. It looks like there's a lot here, but in reality there are so many more books that have been published on this topic and the 1692 hysteria that occurred in Salem, Massachusetts. But I'm just going to go through some of mine that I own. I used to have more than this, actually, but I gave some away over the years. Some are in storage. There's just so many books that it was, completely taking over my bookshelf. So let's get started with some of my favorites. We'll start with the obvious, The Crucible by Arthur Miller. So this was a play written in, I think it was 1950, around the 1950s. And he wrote it in response to the communist Red Scare in America, kind of linking the witch trials and the hysteria to modern day, communism and that scare that happened in America. What he talks about in here that is not true about the trials was John Proctor's relationship with Abigail Williams. That did not happen. Abigail Williams was about 12 years old. John Proctor was about, in reality, in his 60s, mid to late 60s. So they had no relationship whatsoever. But in this play, to add some spice and romance, Arthur Miller, raises Abigail Williams' age to about 16 and lowers John Proctor's and has them have an affair. This, however, is still one of my favorites because it was this book I read when I was about 12 years old. And this is what started me on my path to Salem and my love for it. So it's 12-year-old little Brooklyn girl picking up The Crucible from the library, and I just totally fell in love with it, and something clicked in me. And I feel like sometimes that I lived in Salem in a past life, maybe during the trials, and that's why I'm so connected to it. So it was this book that started it all. So highly suggest it. A pretty good representation of what happened at the time in terms of the hysteria, but there are some inaccuracies as far as history goes. Okay, I just have a, this is nice, the Salem Witch Trials from the History Channel. You gotta love old school History Channel stuff when it was still had history on it and not crappy reality TV shows, right? This one is very good. If you're just starting your path in reading about Salem or learning about it, I really suggest this one because it says The Layman's Guide to the Salem Witchcraft Trials, and it really is. It's by George Malcolm Mule, and it's not big. It's not big at all. So it's an old library book I never returned. It's about, 140 pages. I probably read this early on when I was first learning about Salem, and it really just breaks down the simplicity. This is what happened. Like, it's a good summary of it. So if you're just starting, I do suggest this. That was a car horn outside. Just because it's an easy read, and it's a good way to start to understand what happened without being too complicated. Okay, Hunting for Witches. So this is by Frances Hill, who is a very good writer on the Salem topic, but it's not so much a novel or a historic book. It's just going piece by piece. I tore it up a little because I made, a shadow box of Salem for my mother many years ago, and I used some of the images from this book. But for example, March 1692, the examinations begin. April 1692, the witch hunt expands. A little black minister, probably talking about George Burroughs, who, was the minister that was accused at that time. So, and it has a little excerpt on the jurors. It has some sites in here. It has information about Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Alice Parker. These are some of the people that were hanged. So this is a very easy read. You don't have to go from beginning to end. You can just kind of skip around. It even has like a little map in here with some of the sites. So this is more like a pocket guide that you would maybe buy and take with you on your, while you're walking around Salem, or if you didn't have time to read a book, and you're about to go on your trip and you just want to know more real quick, this is very good to buy. Okay. Not really a history book, but Salem Witchcraft and Souvenirs. So this just really goes through the cool pictures of some of the souvenirs that Salem has produced, well, other countries too have produced in regards to the Salem witchcraft hysteria. Right after the trials, no one really spoke about it. It was definitely quieted and hushed up. It wasn't till, I'm going to say, the late 1800s, early 1900s, that this guy named Farrington and also Daniel Lowe played a big part in bringing back the witch symbol, putting it on things like spoons, china, pottery, stuff like that. So just a cool book to have if you're a collector, old postcards, and you maybe want to get started. This is a nice picture. You would not recognize this, but this is actually the famous witch house, which is that beautiful black foreboding house that you see in all the pictures of Salem. This is actually what it used to look like when it was Farrington's pharmacy. So he started selling souvenirs out of this pharmacy, and he was the first one to sell any kind of Salem merchandise whatsoever. So cool little tidbits like that, but not so much actual witch history. Okay, this book, I'm gonna have a sip of coffee from my Reds mug. Reds is my favorite breakfast place in all of Salem. Okay. Tituba, the Reluctant Witch of Salem. This book is absolutely my favorite when it comes to Salem history because you probably want to read some books first before you get into this and have like a real general understanding of Salem history. But once you do, or if you do already and you haven't read this book, 100% you must, because this goes all into, and you see my many, many notes and highlights. This goes into Tituba's life. And once you read this book, you will start thinking things about the trial that you never thought before, that never occurred to you. You really start to delve deep into the why did this happen. When you understand Tituba's life, because I personally do not believe that it is a coincidence that the Salem witch hysteria stemmed from the house of the parsonage, of Samuel Parris's house. His slave woman was Tituba. She was a Native American Indian slave. So that's not a coincidence. That happened for a reason. It stemmed from that house for a reason. Not putting blame on her whatsoever. But I'm just saying, if you read this book, you'll start to understand more the dynamics of why that happened. So please, highly suggest, this is probably my favorite one you should read. My other favorite is called A Delusion of Satan. This is by Francis Hill. This book is beat up and worn out because I have read it so many times. I even kissed the page for some reason. I don't know why. Who knows? I have millions of notes in here. So if you're just starting your Salem journey, I really suggest, you can read this one. It looks long and it looks like there's a lot of information, and there is, but it's a super easy read. You're not going to be overwhelmed. You're going to fly through it. It's worded very, very well, and it takes you through like a story, you know what I mean? Like a novel. So you really get to understand why things happened. It doesn't go too deep into the trials themselves as far as who said what or this and that. It really is just like a very smooth ride through 1692 into 1693. So once you're done with this, you'll feel like you know Salem really well. Same book. I bought another one because that other one was so marked up with notes. What's this? That's not anything. Oh, this is interesting. So not a lot of people are going to be reading this one. It's called A Modest Inquiry into the Nature of Witchcraft. And what's important about this book is it was written by John Hale in 1697. So, as you know, the witch trials happened in 1692. John Hale was one of the ministers that from very, very early on, from the very beginning, attended the hearings, the trials. He was there from beginning to end. And deep down, John Hale was actually a very good person. He wasn't someone like Cotton Mather, who was just a zealot that just seemed out for blood, or George Corwin, the sheriff, who just was this sadistic, I can't speak, sadistic person. Anyway, John Hale was really kind of like a kind and gentle person. And he truly believed that there were witches out there, like a lot of the Puritans did. So what's hard about the, it's interesting because this is a first-hand account, right? So you initially think, oh my God, I have to read this. This is the source. This is a first-hand source. The problem with it is it's written in Puritan Old English, right? So I've read this book. It was not easy. I had to decipher a lot. It's kind of like translating, Puritan Old English to understand. For example, I'll read, the first chapter. The angels who kept not their sight in the sin against God lost their primitive purity and glorious excellency as to their moral qualifications and became unclean, wicked, envious liars, and full of all wickedness, which as spirits they are capable of. So you get the idea. It's written by a minister in the 1690s. So my bottom line after reading this book was he genuinely believed that they were doing good, but he very kind of quickly realized that they weren't. And by the time he realized it, it was too hard to stop. It was just an ocean of madness that descended on Salem. So it's his attempt to try to justify what he did. 3 Sovereigns for Sarah. This is a PBS movie made for TV. Excellent. Probably the best version. So, you have this and you have the Crucible. I love the Crucible because I love Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder. I'm okay with it not being totally historically accurate. But if you want accuracy, watch this. It was also, they recreated a meeting house which is now on the Rebecca Nurse homestead. So the meeting house that they use in this movie, you can still visit on the Rebecca Nurse homestead. Okay, what else do we have? So we have a bunch of, all right. You can collect these all over Salem. The Trial of Rebecca Nurse, the Trial of Bridget Bishop, the Trial of George Burroughs, the Trial of the Jacobs family, and this last one I'll get to in a minute. So there's more of these. It's just a few that I have, but I'm pretty sure they have documents for all the people that were tried. So it's interesting because they call it the trial, but I don't think any of the trials actually survived time. I think these are the hearings. But for example, they'll have the people, so this is Rebecca Nurse, John Putnam Sr. and Rebecca Nurse, and Rebecca Putnam for Rebecca Nurse, Nathaniel Ingersoll and Hannah Ingersoll versus Rebecca Nurse. So these are the depositions, the deposition of Sarah Bibber. So these are all the people who came for and against her. These are some of her words, what she said when she was put on trial, a little bit about Rebecca in the beginning. So they put all these together as an easy way, and also for a lot of the descendants to just pick it up and just learn more about that one person. The trial of Bridget Bishop, the first person to be tried and executed. So these are more the hearings than the trials. They have the questions and the answers, blah, 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 blah. Did you see this? Did you do that? Have you ever had anything to do with witchcraft? So these are good if you already know a little bit about the trials and you just want to know more about one person in particular. We'll save these two for last. So, A Salem Witch, the trial, execution, and exoneration of Rebecca Nurse. I hear this is an excellent book. I have not read it yet. I personally really love Rebecca Nurse and learning about her. I've been to her homestead many times. I even made a miniature wood homestead decoration that I have here in my house. So this is a pretty heavy-duty book. It's about 300 pages. You're probably going to want to know a little bit about the trials before you delve into this one. This is probably all specifically about Rebecca Nurse. I hear it's amazing though, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. Let's see what else. The Salem Witch Trials Reader. So this is also by Frances Hill. You'll see that they have written a lot of Salem books. This is not a book that is going to tell you what happened. I mean, a little bit, of course, but when they call it the Salem Witch Trials Reader, this is a collection of all the documents for the most part. So we have June, the historians that were involved. So don't pick up this one if you want it to read like a story, because this is mostly documents. Some information about Charles Upham, the village meeting house, some of the ministers that were involved. So kind of just going through, you know, day by day, the guilt of innocent blood, excerpts from John Hale, A Modest Inquiry to the Nature of Witchcraft. So it's not going to take you through like what happened. It's going to just provide you information. This one, extremely good. I'm almost done with it. I've been reading it for a little while. One of my favorites, Marilyn K. Roach, is an incredible author on the Salem Witch Trials. What I love about this book, so it does discuss 6 women of Salem, like the title suggests, but part 2 goes through every month: January, February, March, April, May. So if you want, it's big, it's heavy, it's long, it's about 400 something pages. But it has maps. If you want a day by day, month by month book as to what happened and why, extremely good, very easy to read. You know, not a lot of hard lingo, not Puritan Old English or anything like that. She's a modern day author. She's still very much alive and gives lectures for the Salem Witch Museum all the time. You can do some of her seminars on Zoom even. Her name is Marilyn K. Roach. Excellent book. Okay, we have a few more. I'll go through 1 or 2 more because we're hitting the 20-minute mark soon. Emerson Baker. So I just picked this up. I didn't start reading it yet. Actually, I did a little bit, and I could tell right away. Number 1, I loved it. It's amazing. Number 2, it's very advanced and in-depth. So you have to have read at least a few books on Salem first to understand. I mean, you can definitely dive into it if you're very history savvy and, you know, very sharp mind, and you'll pick up really quick. But if you have no idea what happened in Salem and you just pick up this book, it may be a little bit overwhelming. That's not saying it's not excellent. It's going to be one of my favorite books, I can tell. And I can tell that Emerson Baker has 100% the right idea in terms of what happened in Salem. Right off the bat, from just starting the first chapter in this book, I was like, yep, he knows what he's talking about. I believe he is a teacher at Salem University and a historian there. I think he's friends with Marilyn K. Roach too. So very, very good. Just a little advanced, but excellent. Trials of Giles and Martha Corey, Trials of Sarah Good. So another easy one, if you want to check out, A Guide to the Salem Witchcraft Hysteria. Like some of the other ones, my book is really messed up from notes and everything. But if you are just heading to Salem and you want a very clear, quick, concise, I drew pumpkins, account of what happened. It's falling apart, but this is a very good book. A Guide to the Salem Witchcraft Hysteria. It's easy. It's a quick read. It tells you what you need to know before you visit. Oh, look, a leaf fell out. How funny. Some pictures of the sites. Nathaniel, and some of the sites in the back that you can go visit. So this, like one of the other ones I was talking about early in the beginning, very, very good for a quick, easy read. Okay, I have more books, but I'm running out of time, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Some of the others I have are The Devil Discovered and This one, The Witches, very thick, heavy books, very, very good reads. And again, they all kind of go through the same thing. They all do go through the story. They all go through what happened. Some are harder reads than others, though. You want to start out with, you know, easier books like this one or The Layman's Guide. That's a good start, and then you work your way up to the bigger one. So, okay, guys, cheers. I hope you have a nice week, and I'll talk to you soon.